And we are live down here with Romance Happy Hour. And as you can see, Miss Dylan Crush is not here, but I am joined by Britaini Armitage. Britaini, thank you for joining me again.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back.
Yes, and it's been a while since you and I caught up, so we
I
definitely need
know.
to. But what have you been working on?
I'm finally back into the swing of my You and Me series, and I've got a Royal Romance series planned and in development, and a ranch series in development as well. So it's gonna be
Ooh,
a big year. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. You're going to let me read those, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I promise that I won't see the big joke with Dylan is I always give away her secrets. But I promise I won't give away any of yours.
Yeah, you helped me with the last two that I published because you were like my military liaison, so I wasn't constantly
Yeah.
bugging my husband about it. So you kind of have to be involved.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Awesome. And how's it going? So you were just saying I noted your hair and you said you got it done for the summer because it's getting hot
Sure.
down there.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
That's like it starts getting hot when things start heating up on the farm. We just had 4 goat babies, and well, we should have some chicks soon because our turkey decided she wants to be broody with chicken eggs. So that's going to be interesting to see turkey
oh,
with chicken babies. But
yeah.
yeah, we've got cows and pigs and turkeys and chickens and rabbits and cats and dogs, and it's always busy on the farm.
Yeah. That's exciting. I don't have enough property for all that, but we do have chickens. And so my husband did have some chicken math today, or not
Oh boy.
today, but this year. So we got 6 and then we lost one last year. And then this year we went he says we're only getting 4. And then we
Famous
get
last word.
there. Yeah, yeah. And with the chicken flu and everything that was going on right as chick season was here, everybody, especially in Montana, was at the stores. All like you had to reserve your chicks or you had to be standing in line like Black Friday. It was
That's
like a
what I
Black
heard
Friday
too.
situation here.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, I'm
You
glad we have our own chicks now. We've kind of
yeah.
like, I guess it's slowed down a little bit here, but now I'm just like, I couldn't even tell you how many chickens we have on our farm now. We have
Yeah.
all sorts of chickens and ducks, and I'm like, well, if more show up, then we just
Mm.
roll with it.
I wanted a duck, but my husband said no, that's where he draws the line. So
Yeah, my
we
husband
went.
said that too, and then he we got ducks last year for Connor's birthday. We took him with us to Tractor Supply, and Connor's like, I really want ducks for my birthday, and I'm like, see, so we had ducks.
Nice. Yeah, we went for 4 and then my husband's like we had to wait for like an hour before we can get them, right? Cuz they were warming
Mhm.
up and getting and so my husband's like, "Okay, we want one of those, one of those, one of those and one of those." Cool. No, actually let's do 2 of those. One of those. One of those, one of those. Okay. Nope, 2, 2, 2, 2. And then eventually it got to the point where we had 8 and we were walking out with 8 and my husband's like, "You know what? Wait, can we get one of these ones too?" And like it was a whole shopping situation, and then we left with 9 chickens instead of 4.
Yeah, we had our
Oh,
situation last year where a friend of ours moved, and they're like, "Oh, you want our flock of chickens?" And I'm like, "3 chickens, throw them in there."
eggs, yeah,
Yeah, and then
yeah.
everybody started multiplying. I'm like, we don't even have an incubator going right now. How is this broody chickens when we don't? And then we
Yeah.
found the turkey all broody, and she's on like 30 eggs, and I'm like, I'm not fighting
Oh,
that today. So I guess we'll see how many we get. It's any day now. So
yeah, you should start selling chicks. I mean, you could make a bucket of money right now. I was gonna say buttload, sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
chickens and hens, and I'm like, oh, I kind of like my hens right now. If you want
Yeah.
a rooster, I gave a couple roosters to a friend of mine because they kept escaping and they got right under my bedroom window and were crowing at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, if we
Yeah.
don't get rid of them, I'm gonna eat them because
Yeah.
4 o'clock, the sun's not even up, dude.
So, are you gonna have chickens in your next book?
Uh, I need to because it's Ryan and Taylor's second book, and in their first book, they go to a fair and she talks about how she wants chickens because she can have a pet and have breakfast.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so yeah, so I need to work that one in. It's just this one's a lot faster paced with the suspense side of things.
Yeah.
So I got to find a good way to work it in. But uh, I hadn't intended to give them another book, but now I've figured out that all of them, I guess, have to have 2 books. And I realized, like, we didn't get the conclusion. Did she get her kidney transplant? Is she better? And I'm like, that's why I haven't been able to write for 3 years, is because I'm trying to write the wrong story here. But I do. I
Yeah.
do need to put chickens in that one.
It's like a writer's block that won't just let you go, and you just don't know
I was
where
so
you're blocked.
frustrated. I was trying to write from 2 of the other characters' perspectives, and I scrapped that book like 3 times. And then I finally, the other day, was like, it's been about a month ago. I was like, Ryan and Taylor need their second book. And I started writing, and I'm already halfway done now. And I'm like, this is what the holdup was. Sometimes you got to actually
Nice.
listen to your characters instead of forcing it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that being said, so we are joined here by Carla, Luna, and Tricia Andersen. Hello, ladies. How are you today?
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So, Carla, let's start with you. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and what you're reading from today?
Sure. So I'm a former archaeologist, and I used to travel a lot, and I used to work in a museum, and I didn't get to end up staying in academia, but when I started writing romance, I decided I wanted to incorporate the archaeology knowledge into my books. So one of my series is called Romancing the Ruins, and it's what I'm going to read from one of those books. And those are
Nice.
archaeology based. And then I have another series that are romantic comedies set at destination weddings, because I love weddings. I love wedding movies and wedding rom-coms. And then I have a new series called the Duchess Hotel series set in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, which is where I grew up. But I'm not reading from that one because the first book is a Christmas book, and my next one is a Halloween one, but it's not ready yet. So I'm going to read from the archaeology series.
Okay, fun.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I think that if I wouldn't have been on the track I am now, like there's 2 job fields I would have wanted to do. One would be marine biology and one would be archaeology. I think it's fascinating. So I'm pretty excited.
It was,
Yeah.
and I liked it. I didn't love some of the politicking, and some of it was really, I mean, I hate to say the word dry because you're out in the desert, but it was not, you not as imaginative as you would imagine. Like, it's just a lot of pottery and cataloging stuff and drawing plans of architecture, and it was interesting, but actually it's been more fun to write about it in a romancy kind of way.
Mm,
So
that sounds like it.
yeah, so the first book in the series is called Field Rules, and it is set on at a field school, which is like a dig school in Cyprus, which is an island in the Mediterranean. That's where I went on my first overseas dig. So it's kind of based a little bit on my experiences. And in this book, the heroine, Olivia, is a fish out of water. She's a grad student who hasn't been on a dig in years due to reasons. And Rick, the hero, is what they call a shovel bum, which is a guy who travels from dig to dig, or it could be a female, not going into academia, but just working in the field. So they're kind of opposites because she's very academic. He's very much just a freewheeling guy. But they have a history. So
Nice.
yeah, so it's a second chance romance.
Okay.
So,
I'm excited.
Yeah, so
well,
yes, go ahead.
Let's introduce let Tricia introduce herself real quick, and then we'll get to the reading. I'm very excited. I love archaeology. I'm fascinated.
Well, I'm Tricia Andersen. I write all sorts of romance. A lot of my books have a MMA fighter kind of a feel to them. But I write it all historical, fantasy. I've got werewolves. I've got Greek gods. I've got contemporary. I pretty much have it all. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Right. And you've been here before, and so we got to
Yes.
we got to hear from one of your MMA books prior to this, correct?
Yes.
So
yes.
what book? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I would say I started leaning towards that because I was working out in an MMA gym, and I haven't so much anymore, but things life happened. But yeah, I got to learn all of it, from kickboxing to jujitsu to how to hold yourself in a cage. I actually helped train somebody in a cage. I pretty much in my biography said I have done all of it from up to putting somebody in a cage, and then that was it. I've even walked people out during a fight. And that's, yeah.
Great. And is this one about a fighting book too?
It's yes and no. This particular book that I'm going to read from is from a series that has MMA attached to it. It just happens that this particular book does not. It has to do with biker gang
Ah, ooh,
and Greek gods. So yeah.
how fun. Yeah.
Tricia, if you combined us, we would be like Lara Croft.
Yes,
You've got the
exactly.
skills, I've
Oh my
got the
gosh.
background.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, exactly. That's so fun. All right. So let's hear from you, Carla. I'm gonna put you up there.
Okay.
If I can figure this out. I can't find it. There you go. There you are.
All righty. Okay. All right. So this is chapter 1. This is Olivia Sanchez's point of view. She is the heroine. Olivia Sanchez cleared customs in the blink of an eye. All that remained was securing a ride. She scrolled through the text she'd received from her friend and fellow graduate student Frida Gallego, who'd worked in Cyprus last year. Frida's last message dampened a little of Olivia's enthusiasm. Don't count on getting picked up. Go to the taxi stand outside arrivals and find a group taxi to the Paphos area. Despite her friend's warning, Olivia secretly hoped someone might be waiting for her. Someone with an air-conditioned ride and an ice-cold bottle of water. She headed for the arrivals area of the Larnaca airport. All around her were brightly dressed tourists and lively families eager for the start of summer vacation. Cheerful tour guides waving bright blue flags waited for their clients. But no one held up a sign with her name on it. Bracing herself for the heat, Olivia exited the sliding glass doors. The sweltering temperature and blinding sunshine hit her like a smack upside the head, and the clamoring noise assaulted her senses. Cars pulled up to the curb and honked. People called out to each other in a babble of languages. At the taxi stand, she took her place in line behind an older couple. As they argued with the dispatcher, their demands escalated into a torrent of foul language. Countless summers working at her family's Mexican restaurant had given Olivia little patience for rude customers. She was about to put the entitled tourists in their place when a sharp whistle grabbed her attention. She whipped her head around and caught sight of a battered green Jeep with a faded ragtop idling in front of the line of taxis. The driver leaned out of the window and beckoned to her. "Hey, Olivia, over here!" Yes, someone had come to get her. She stepped out of the taxi line but stopped short when she got a closer look at the driver. Rick Langston. She had to be dreaming. She rubbed the grit from her eyes, considering how little she'd slept on the red-eye from LAX to Athens. Followed by the puddle jumper from Athens to Larnaca, she might be hallucinating. Olivia! Damn, it was him. Her stomach bottomed out, her emotions churning in a stew of shock, anger, and guilt. After 7 years apart, she'd never expected to see him again. She marched up to the curb. "What are you doing here?" Ignoring the barrage of horns, Rick got out of the Jeep and sauntered over to her. The last time she'd seen him, he'd been 19. A cute, well-built 19, but still kind of gangly, a teenager. This was a man, deeply tanned, broad shoulders, and seriously ripped. Toss in thick, wavy brown hair, a strong jaw, and killer cheekbones, and the total effect was, well, breathtaking. But even if he was far hotter than she remembered, he was the last person she needed in her life right now. Given her lack of experience as a field archaeologist, she had enough to deal with. Adding an ex to the mix made everything more stressful. Not just any ex, but the guy who'd captured her heart when she'd met him on a dig in Clear Lake, California, 7 years ago. A dig that had ended so catastrophically she'd never been out in the field again. Rick crossed his arms, revealing impressive biceps. "Nice to see you, too." "You didn't answer my question. What are you doing here?" "Well, what do you think?" She groaned as the realization hit her. "Please tell me you're not working for the UC Field School." "Yep. Up until 2 hours ago, I thought I was picking up Frida Gallego. Imagine my surprise when I found out you took her place. Did he think that was her fault? That's not on me. Frida broke her ankle, so I was asked to fill at the last minute. I wouldn't have said yes if I'd known you were going to be here. He scowled. What the hell, Olivia? If anyone should be mad, it's me. You're the one who ended things without a word of explanation. Guilt slammed into her, twisting her stomach in knots. At the time, she'd been so distraught she believed her decision was justified. Now it seemed callous. I'm sorry, but I thought it was the right move. After everything that happened, You what? She struggled to come up with a decent excuse for ghosting him, but was too frazzled to think rationally. She shook her head. Sorry. Forget it, I've moved on. Rick's gaze roamed over her. So you're working here? Teaching students about archaeology? Like I said, I'm filling in for Frida. I heard you. But when's the last time you were on a dig? His scornful words brought back the anxiety she'd battled over the last 2 weeks. All the angst and sleepless nights when she wondered if she could handle this job. But before she could defend herself, one of the taxi drivers yelled at them. She turned around and cursed him out in Greek. A ghost of a smile flickered across Rick's lips. Nice comeback, but you didn't answer my question. Can we talk about it on the drive? She wiped her forehead. 5 minutes in the broiling July sun, and she was already sweating. When he didn't budge, she flashed him her humblest smile. Please, Rick, all I want to do is offload this pack and crash in that sweet air-conditioned Jeep of yours. It does have air conditioning, right? No worries, Princess. The AC works just fine. Princess, the same nickname he'd given her at Clear Lake as a term of endearment. That had to mean something. All right, so that is Olivia, and now we're going to get a little bit of Rick in the next chapter. They've stopped at a gas station. They're headed for the field school. They're driving from the airport to the field school, and there's one other passenger with him. His name is TJ. He's not that important, but he's mentioned. So Rick eased out of the Jeep and asked the waiting attendant to fill it with gas. Above him, the sky was a brilliant blue, the heat shimmering off the road in waves. He took a deep breath, grateful this was his last round of airport pickups for the day. Though he hated playing the role of errand boy, he kept his complaints to himself. In a few days, he'd be out in the field doing what he loved best. Olivia clambered out of the Jeep and caught up to him. She smoothed her hair as though trying to tuck the wayward curls back into her ponytail. Rick, just so we're clear, no one knows about us. What do you mean? I never told anyone about Clear Lake. Since we didn't finish the dig, I didn't put it on my resume. My family knows about it, but otherwise I don't talk about it ever. His earlier irritation returned. Even if they'd messed up royally, they'd made some fantastic memories. But she'd chosen to block all of it. You were that ashamed of what we did? Her mouth gaped open. Weren't you? We were expelled. I wanted to put it behind me. No one at UCLA knows. Not even Frida? She's heard the basic story, but I never told her your name. He raked a hand through his hair. No wonder she didn't warn me. In hindsight, I wish I'd mentioned you, then I could have bailed. Now it's too late. She gnawed on her lip. Anyway, it might be best if we keep the past a secret. I want to come across as professional, and the students might not respect me as much if they knew you'd hooked up with your coworker. He said it with such vitriol that he regretted his words immediately. She flinched as though he'd struck her. Don't be a jerk. Besides, we didn't actually do the deed. No, but they'd done almost everything else. And if he recalled correctly, she'd enjoyed it as much as he had. He blew out a long breath, annoyed at himself for reacting in anger. Look, I'm sorry. That was a low blow. It was. She closed her eyes and released a drawn-out sigh. Anyway, it's ancient history. So can we please keep things quiet, Rick? As much as he hated to concede, her request worked in his favor. After his disastrous slip-up 2 months ago, his reputation didn't need another hit. Works for me. He cast a glance over at the Jeep. We should get going before TJ comes looking for us. He's probably wondering what's going on. Oops. Do you think if I paid him $20, he'd shut up? I'm getting a headache. You and me both, Rick said. When Olivia laughed, the pressure lifted just a little. He went inside the station's convenience store and headed for the refrigerated section. After grabbing 3 bottles of soda, he joined Olivia at the counter, where she was perusing a small display of tourist trinkets, keychains, sunglasses, magnets, pens, and blue glass charms meant to ward off the evil eye. Off to one side, a small rack held a meager selection of postcards. He pointed to the rack. You still collect postcards? When she smiled at him, it was like the sun breaking out of the clouds. Yeah, my sister sends me a new one every month. Does she travel for work? Sort of. She's like an influencer and has a foodie travel account. Maybe you've heard of her? So Food Sophia? I'm not on social media. Half the time I'm working in places where I'm off the grid. After flipping through the postcards, he found one displaying an ancient Roman amphitheater. He paid for it along with the gas and the drinks and passed it to her. Here you go. This place should be right up your alley. She looked over the inscription. Kurion, is it nearby? Just outside of Limassol. It's one of the sites we'll be visiting during field school. Thanks. And thanks for agreeing to keep things quiet. Sure. What else could he do? If she didn't want anyone to know they'd ever met, he'd do his best to play along. Like she said, their fling was ancient history. It didn't need to be dug up again. So that's it.
Awesome. Let me just unmute everybody here. Oh, Brittany. There we go. I muted you at the same time you muted yourself. Awesome. Thank you.
You're
Oh,
welcome.
okay. So, this brought to mind a question just for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes our questions are like for everybody, but what is the most awesome thing that you've dug for as it working in that field, and what are they digging for?
Okay, so it's interesting. They're actually in a field school, which is where it's like a combination between a summer camp and like a summer school for college. It's for college students. So they in this one they learn how to do ground surveying, which is really hard. I was horrible at it because I get lost. And they also are digging up a Roman villa that was collapsed in an earthquake, which is actually what I dug up. I based it on my experiences, and it was cool because when we dug it up, we found evidence of skeletons, which it wasn't a burial site. So, and the way they were positioned and with the rubble, it was like they were killed during the earthquake. So they were buried alive in this house, which is, other people would be horrified, and we were excited as archaeologists. We're like, oh, a skeleton, yay, and it's not a burial.
Yeah. I'm fascinated. Oh, so I told my husband, I said, I want to be buried like snuggling, like at some point, like even if we're buried separately, but together in the same thing, because I want archaeologists to dig us up later and be like, what is their love story? Like what is their story?
Romance.
What is the story? Yeah. The romance, the Romeo and Juliet, like, right. This is the Romeo and Juliet skeleton of the 2000.
And then there's me. I'm like, just do whatever you want to do with me. Like, I don't care. I'm dead.
Ditto.
And archaeologists aren't very respectful because they're like looking at the skull and doing the whole thing from Hamlet, the alas poor Yorick thing.
I can see
and then
that.
we named them. They were Brutus and Portia. We just like picked Roman names. So we treat everything really carefully. It's just there's not a lot of like there's a lot of laughter and joking in archaeology.
Yeah. Okay. If you need to write, you need to pass it down to your generations and future archaeologists in your family. If they ever find my skeleton, they need to name me and my husband Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Just
That's
a
my request.
note in your coffin.
Yeah. Well,
Romeo and Juliet.
What lasts longer than paper, though?
Something with
on the side.
Paper. Yeah, paper disintegrates. Anything bone, like if you carve something on like bone or metal lasts, although it corrodes. But things that bone tools have been found back as like way back to like caveman days. Like they found bone tools and stuff like that. Stone carving too. Okay,
bone. That's tricky. I don't
like
know if
ivory. Ivory's not too good, but like stone though, like if you had a little sculpture or something.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. All right. I want them to call us the Romeo and Juliet burial site or whatever that they come up with. I love that. So clearly you got your inspiration from your history. That was another
Yes.
question that I have here. So tell us about like, oh wait, did you that's the most awesome thing you dug for. Was that it?
Oh,
What was the most
so I
awesome?
would say I never found anything like that was a treasure, but I did work on a Crusader castle in outside
Ooh.
of Jerusalem, and that was really neat because Jerusalem has all these hills, and it was located on a hill. And getting to dig in this castle, even though we didn't find anything like really amazing like armor, it was just still a really cool experience. So that was probably like my most interesting one because I always have been fascinated by the Crusades.
Yeah. Did you ever like dig anything up and think like so you do you write contemporary, all contemporary, or do you
Yeah,
write
so all my romance, my three books in this series. So there's Field Rules, there's Troy Story, which is set at Troy, which is where the Iliad took place. You probably know that, Tricia. And then there's Tour Wars, which is set in Italy. They're all contemporary romances involving archaeologists they're digging up the past, but they don't deal with they don't go back in time. It's not like Indiana Jones and the whatever
yeah.
Dial movie that just came out.
Yeah. So have you ever like done a dig and then thought like I want to write this story like but historical from a historical standpoint?
I'm trying to think. I think I was very interested at the time. I will say that when I worked in Turkey for 5 months and I was working on the ruins of a shipwreck, but I actually got
Ooh.
really interested in Ottoman history. And so I wrote what now would be called a romantasy set in like an alternative Ottoman empire. So I was really inspired by living in Turkey and seeing all these Ottoman like architecture and going to Istanbul and stuff like that. And I never revised it. It was like years and years ago, but that was probably the biggest inspiration I ever had was wanting to write like my own version of the Ottoman Empire in fantasy.
Yeah. Oh, that would be cool.
It'd be
Yeah.
really cool. A lot of research.
Yeah. Well, that's another question is like how much research do both of you? This is for both of you. How much research do you do for your books? And we'll start with Carla and then go to Tricia.
I do a lot. So for all my archaeology ones, I had worked in all those countries, the three countries, but I went back in 2022 and 2023 to each country and visited for like a week and a half, 2 weeks, and took pictures and went back to the places that I knew. And I did like a lot of personal research, which wasn't really a hardship. Like it's not a hardship to go to Turkey or Italy.
Yeah.
And then I did a lot of archaeological research because, like, for example, in Tour Wars, they start at Pompeii. So I did a lot of research. I've never dug at Pompeii. So I did a lot of research into Pompeii. Same with Troy. I haven't dug at Troy. So I did a lot of research into like the Trojan War and all the different theories about the different levels of archaeology at the Troy site. So a lot of that. And then just like what do people eat and day-to-day stuff. And
Yeah.
but yeah, a lot of those of all the books I've written, the archaeology ones were the most research intensive just because I wanted to get the archaeology right.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Tricia?
For me, it really honestly depends on the book. Like, so for a lot of my contemporary MMA, yeah, I might do a little research, but when you're doing what you're actually doing, it's my first few books I ran by my coach to say, okay, does this make sense? Can you visualize what I'm doing? And after about the fifth or sixth book, he's like, you've got it. Don't bring it to me. You're okay.
Yeah.
Um, he's like, no, you got it. You got it. You know what you're doing. With the Gods of DC, I do a lot of research because I've got to take what that god was known for and some of the stories that were written about them and interweave them into the book because
Yeah.
it's set in contemporary. They're doing contemporary things, but how does Ares react against, a modern war? How does, like, in the book I'll be reading, Demeter is a biker who prefers to stay out in her cabin and really doesn't like anybody. And so I had to figure out how to take this goddess who, of the wild and how she reacted in this story, and especially how like wildlife would react if their goddess wasn't there. So it
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of deep diving and figuring out what they would do if they reacted in a modern world.
Yeah, that is interesting. So it's like the what I'm getting here is the book is actual gods, Greek myth gods that like of what's the word evolved like with us throughout the years, and that now they're in contemporary world and having to be in contemporary world?
Well, the premise is Zeus is enamored with modern technology, so he basically kicks his family out into the real world and says, "Okay, go. We're all going to live like
Ah,
everybody else. Go.
cool.
Olympus is no more Olympus. Go." Olympus is still there, but he kicked everybody out. So everybody's got to adapt with who they are in their real world. Like Athena works for the Pentagon, and
Mm,
Ares owns a fight club, and Demeter owns a farm out in the middle of nowhere. And yeah,
yeah.
and Hestia just fought him all together, hijacked a castle, and is living in the middle of Maine
Oh, I'd do
where
that.
nobody can find her. Yeah, just living in a
I'd do
castle
that
in
if I was the
Maine.
god.
Yeah,
Find a
it's like
castle.
you can't tell me how to live. She grabs a castle and goes to Maine in the middle where nobody can find her except for her own family.
I
And even
love
that
it.
she's not too fond of. She doesn't really like when the family stops by either.
That's funny. We actually have a castle here. Like I live in Darby, Montana, and there's literally 800 people in my town, right? But somewhere out of town there is a castle, and you can
Wow.
only see it when in the winter when there's no foliage. You can
Yeah.
only that's the only time you can see it. So that's where I would live. That's
Yeah.
where I'd live if I was that goddess.
Oh, yeah.
That's really cool. Oh, so Brittany, do you got I have a couple more questions, but let me move it to you. Do you have any questions yourself?
Yeah, I think every time I'm on here, I have to ask: Are you a plotter or are you a pantser?
Mm-hmm.
So, I always have an idea of what I want to write. Like, I always figure out the characters, the tropes, the setting, and then I kind of have like a rough outline. And then I'm kind of like a planter, so I'm in the middle because I know how I want it to start. I don't always know how I want it to end, other than the happy ending part. But I kind of it'll twist and turn. And a lot of times I'm a discovery writer. So I will like discover things about the characters as I write them. And
Yeah.
things that I thought I was going to do, I'm like, no, this isn't what the character wants. So I would say that's kind of what I am, even though I start out with an idea of what I want to do, but I don't always know where my characters are going to take me.
How about
About
you?
the
Tricia?
same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about the same. I have a general idea of what I'm doing. I have a general idea who my characters will be and what they're going to do. But from there, I just kind of let them tell me what they want to do. So I
Yeah.
go with that. I thought that maybe I started writing things down, I'd stay more on track, but yeah, I have no motivation to do that, so I just go with it.
Yeah. I
So
think
do
Yeah,
you
it's the
guys
same.
write linearly? I'm fast. I love finding out how other people write because I bounce all the way around. And I was talking to somebody and they're like, "How do you write like that?" And I'm like, "Well, if I'm not inspired to write the beginning, but I'm inspired to write the end, I have to write the end,
Mhm.
or I have a scene in the middle."
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
Yeah.
tried to
Looking for it on TikTok for a while and I can't find it now. They called it something real wonky and now I can't find it. I'm gonna have to look for it. But it was like you write the main pillars and then you write the beginning and the end. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of do that, but I also bounce around. So I love it
Yeah.
when other people are like, no, you're not crazy.
I do
Yeah.
sometimes. One thing I do that I really like is before I start writing, I do pre-writing. So I'll write scenes with the characters that are like backstory scenes,
Mhm.
like maybe where someone got their heart broken, or maybe if it's second chance, like something that happened. And those are just for fun for me. And I love doing those because it gets me in the mindset of the characters before I actually decide, okay, I'm going to start with chapter 1. And then sometimes if I get too like stuck, I'll go back and write one of those scenes just for fun. They usually don't make it into the book, but that really helps me a lot.
Yeah,
So
that's
you
really-
write just for fun scenes that don't make it into the book?
Yep. I mean, they could be used for bonuses later.
I was
Like,
going
but
to
I
say,
do.
do you
I
get
do.
that?
Yeah, I do that because I have like in Troy's story, they had this sort of little thing that happened after some shenanigans that's always talked about, but it's never described. And I wrote a whole scene where it happens. I'm like, oh, that would be a fun bonus to give at some point.
I really feel like you should have told us this a long time ago so that we could have had you read one of these
Bonus
little
scene.
And
passages.
they're not very polished though. I mean, they would need to be a little more polished.
Well, when you're talking, you could be like, "Oh, like."
And often
You
they're
can
the
skip over the
seniors.
polish. I love it. No, that's awesome. About you, Tricia?
I currently am trying to convince myself that I can write the whole book in consecutive order without writing the end. Because if I really could, I just write the end and then try to figure out the rest of it. Because that's the part I have in my head is the
Mhm.
end. I don't
Really?
have, yeah. I mean, I have
I
like bits and pieces, but the end is like the big, like one of the two I'm working on right now, I have the whole ending fight scene in my head. But I'm like, nope, you can't go there. You have to finish the rest of the book. You can finish it then when you get there. But yeah,
have you ever tried to write the end and then see what happens?
always. Almost every other my book is that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Almost
Right,
never.
yeah,
'Cause
and
I love the feeling of like when I write the last, say 4 or 5 chapters, I'm writing so fast I can barely breathe. And then when I get to
Mhm.
that part where I write the end, I feel so excited. Like that to me is like this huge adrenaline rush. So usually when I write the end of my books, it's always like in one day and it's always like the final, I just go nonstop. So I want to save that rush for the very end.
the,
Well, this leads me to. I'm sorry. Who was going to
I was
talk?
it, the downside to that is when I get to the end after I've written the rest of the book, I have to redo the ending because there's probably something that didn't make it in or no longer
Yeah.
is relevant or yeah.
Or you got a hole somewhere, and you're like, "Crap! I gotta
Yeah.
button this one up."
Cool.
Plot hole. So that leads me to another question. How many words can you write in one day? What is the most amount of words you've ever written
The
in a day?
mostest words.
The mostest words in a day.
Hmm.
I beat my record the other day. I wrote over 11K.
What? In a
Wow.
nice.
And that's with like a full-time job. I was like taking breaks and writing, and then took my lunch break and then wrote until like 1 o'clock in the morning. I was like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted now. But I was like inspired, and I've been on like this dry streak. So I'm like,
I love it. Because I've been on a dry streak, and also I can't write though in the morning or no at night. I can only write in the morning fresh with coffee in my brain, but
oh, see, I'm not a morning
night.
person. I've tried getting up with my writing partner and writing in the morning, and we have a couple times, but then I'm like, I'm so tired. I just want to go back to bed. I'm a night owl.
Mm,
So I put here, I'm looking at one of my journals. I wrote, when I finished Troy Story, it was 10,000 words. I wrote the last 10,000 words in one day.
nice.
So that's
Good
often what
job.
happens, but that's only like at the end. That's the only at the end. I can't usually keep that pace up. That's only because and it's not well written. It's like just coming out of me like just blah, but it's because
Yeah.
I'm so excited to get to that end.
Yeah.
I want to say
Tricia?
somewhere in that neighborhood, trying to get a book done in time to get to an editor.
Oh yeah, I
Mhm.
can see that. Yep.
Yeah. Schedule a day with the editor and it's like, okay, well, I
Yeah.
got 10 grand more to go. Let's do it. And it was one shot.
Procrastination is a really good motivator.
That is my
Yeah.
motivator. Yeah.
Then you're like, are you sure you don't want the first half of it first? While I
Can I just send you
see
the
what
first
I
half?
wrote last night?
Have we done that before, Dawn? I've edited a couple
Yeah.
Dawn's books, and she's like, I'm going to
Yeah.
send some of it now. And I'm like, probably a good idea.
Yeah. Go through it.
Mine's
Get
always with
rid
a
of your
warning.
excessive commas
Yeah.
and
Like, that's
send
the
it
worst
back.
you do in a book. You're doing real good, though. And I've
It
told her
is.
that. She's like, too many commas. And I'm like, that I can deal with commas. I can handle the commas.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right.
It's better
Well,
than
sorry, go ahead, Tricia.
I would say that's better than what was that word you were trying? I'm like, I don't even know what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I
It's there. She's like, what's
comment.
this? I go,
I had to
don't know.
leave a comment
Good
for
luck.
a client. Like, what were you trying to say here? Sorry, I'm not understanding this.
That's when you got to start being a little bit of a smart aleck and be like, you tell me. You
Yeah.
tell me. And you're like, yep, that's it. That's what I was. All right, Tricia, we need to hear from you,
Yes.
though. I'm very excited about this. So let's
Okay.
pop you up there, and the rest of us will be muted.
Okay, so I'm reading from A Biker's Guide to Saving a Goddess. It is the 6th book in the Gods of DC series. This would be the series with the Greek gods who got kicked out of Olympus. The only thing that I didn't share is that in each book, it's a Greek god who pairs up with a paranormal creature like a vampire or a werewolf or a leprechaun. There's a leprechaun. So yeah, in this book, it is about Artemis. She has been kidnapped by a biker gang of demons. So her Greek god family figure the only way they're going to find her is if they become bikers themselves. So, and I am on chapter 6. Well, this was it. Freddie stared at the squat metal-sided pole building in front of him. Each window glowed with a neon beer sign. The outside of the establishment was lined with motorcycles of every shape and size. He could hear the music and shouting across the street where the family stood. He glanced beside him. His beautiful bride and the rest of the relatives straddled their own bikes in a line ready to park. Some of them, like him, had figured out how to handle the machine between his legs. Others, primarily Poseidon, Apollo, and Khalil, had to use their power to fake it. This is a bad idea. A really, really horrible plan. So should we go in? Matt queried. Do you want to get beat up that bad? Freddie countered. I'm always up for a fight. Ares kicked off the ground and drove into the lot. Thanks for deciding for us, bro, Athena shouted after him. The rest of the family followed him, finding a place to park their motorcycles near the back of an empty field. It might have been beneficial being so far from the bar. They could make a quick getaway when all heck broke loose. With Ares in the lead, that was bound to happen. Freddie took the rear with Demeter as they strode with purpose toward the structure. They were all ready to play the part of a tough biker club from the moment their feet hit the ground. However, for a few brief moments, he was going to enjoy his wife. He brushed her long, dark hair from her shoulder, noticing a silvery streak that wove through it. You are beautiful. You know that, right? He saw her grin, even though her gaze was locked on the metal shack. At this point, they could clearly understand the lyrics to the blaring country song that was playing inside. You noticed the gray hair, didn't you? What gray hair? You're funny. Your kids are doing that to me. You know that, right? My kids are angels. Maybe your children are doing that to you. Freddie, baby, they're the same kids. Gray or no, you are an exquisite beauty. You are such a smooth talker. If you like gray hair so much, maybe I should take my previous form on again. Remember her? I fell in love with her. So yes, I do remember. I still don't know why, but I'm not going to question it. Probably a good idea. Look sharp, we're headed in. Freddie stammered for a second before he pulled his hand away. He brushed the front of his vest as Ares threw open the glass door into the establishment. The rest of the group followed him inside. The cool air was the first thing that hit Freddie. The high vac had to be on full blast to pump out a frigid breeze like that. The murderous glares of the patrons inside was the second thing to strike him. They were all dressed just like the Greeks. At least they got that part of the ruse correct. A beefy gent sitting on a bar stool growled in their general direction. What do you want? Apollo tried to put on his most vicious face. It did nothing for his surfer countenance. We could ask you the same thing. Freddie couldn't stop from smacking himself in the face with his palm. Demeter huffed beside him. The biker hauled himself off his seat and shuffled across the floor until he was practically nose to nose with Apollo. Want to make something of it? We just want a drink. Poseidon waved to the bartender. A round of drinks. The large man shoved the god of the sun in the chest. Didn't you hear me, boy? Apollo didn't get a chance to answer. Freddie wasn't sure if it was Deidre or Khalil, but one of them swung at the guy. A small stream of blood poured from his nose as he teetered a little before toppling to the ground. The thud of his butt on the cement floor set off a powder keg in the room. Glasses started flying. There was no place for the family to retreat to. Ares was clearly loving every second of it. The rest of the gods, goddesses, and their loved ones, not so much. One by one, the family escaped from the bar. Freddie deflected a punch as he wrapped an arm around Demeter's waist. He backed his way out of the door and back into the parking lot. He nudged her towards the bikes. Go. Not without you, she protested. I have a feeling that I'm going to get to help Ares out of there. Did you see all that? The patrons are fighting each other and us. I used to be his high priest. He's using his power in there. Demeter only shook her head before she pushed off her toe and jogged to the end of the field where they left their bikes. Freddie watched her go, then turned to meet Poseidon and Mac. We're going to have to drag him out. Mac huffed as he crossed his arms over his chest. Better sooner than later before he starts World War III, Poseidon confirmed. Let's do it then. Freddie stalked back to the bar with them on his heels. He counted the others as they escaped. Apollo and Khalil shielded Deidre as they retreated. The bar rag wrapped around her hand told Freddie that she had thrown the first strike. Athena was close behind them, muttering something about her brother being a dumbass. Juliet and Hades were at the door as they approached. By the dark expression on her face, it was apparent that she agreed with her sister-in-law. I tried to drag him out with me. You know how he is when he gets going. Tell me about it. Freddie grabbed the cold metal handle and threw it open. Like one singular force of nature, the three of them stormed into the melee in search of Ares. He wasn't hard to find. He was standing on a table, rocking it back and forth with his feet. He waved his arms over his head like he was directing an orchestra. He smirked down at them as he continued his motion. What do you want? We're leaving, Poseidon ordered. Ares motioned around at the war that was raging around him. Nah, I'm having a good time. It wasn't a request. Freddie kicked at the single column that supported the table, freeing it from the top. Ares flailed about as it came crashing down beneath him. Before he smacked himself on the cement, Poseidon and Mac caught him in midair. They hooked their arms around his until they were locked tight, then hauled him out of the establishment, kicking and screaming. I wasn't done, he protested. Yeah, you were, Mac admonished. The tantrum continued across the parking lot to the bikes. The further they got from the shack bar, the quieter it became. It didn't even give Ares a chance to escape. Frankly, Poseidon and Freddie had experienced bullying Ares into behaving. Bullying was never the answer unless the bully was a temperamental god of war trying to cause panic and mayhem. Only in that case could the gloves come off. Thankfully, since Juliet came along and they had their bundles of joy, the outbursts came far less frequently. It didn't mean they were gone for good. They drove for an hour until they arrived at the roadside motel they were using as their home base for the time being. The place looked like it had come directly from a 50s postcard, except the roof in spots was caving in and the paint was almost chipped off the siding. Athena pulled out her room key and jammed it in the lock. Everyone followed her inside once she shoved the door open. Mac shut it behind him far quieter than his wife had been. Freddie dropped onto the bed and tugged Demeter onto his lap. Feeling her warm rear on his thighs through his jeans brought him painfully to attention. Was it time for the twins to have a sibling? So, what did we take away from this debacle? Poseidon began. That Ares should be back with Hestia and the kids, Khalil offered. I'm not sure that would be fair to Hestia to burden her with that many toddlers, Apollo added.
The unmute. I loved it. There we go. Oh, me and Brittany are playing this game again. Where we did. I'm doing it, Brittany. I'm doing it. I'm on. Oh my God. Yeah.
I liked all the
Okay,
personalities of the Greek
actually-
gods. That was funny.
Yes. Yes. Finally.
They're fun to write.
Yeah.
They're fun to write.
And in fact, that was the question that popped up in my brain that I wrote down so I wouldn't forget it was who was your favorite god to write?
That's an interesting question because I love writing them all. Probably Ares. Just because he's snide, he's a smartest, but he has a heart of gold in the end, which is something you don't expect out of that particular god because he was never known for that.
So Ares was a surfer dude, right? That is how
No,
you wrote it.
Ares is the fighter. He was
Is
the
the
one
fighter. Okay.
causing all the ruckus. Yeah.
Okay. And who's the surfer dude?
Apollo.
Apollo. Okay.
I
Yeah.
could do that.
Yeah.
It's the
He was the one that was the most interesting to research because when I was trying to come up with the plot line for his, I realized things about him. He has 2 love interests.
Uh-oh.
A genie and an Irish demon. Yeah.
Without giving it away, who does he choose? I'm just kidding. You
Oh
don't have
no,
to
no, no,
answer
no.
that.
Both, both. Yeah, they're both.
Okay. So
They're a happily triplet.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
triple. Yeah,
So yeah, you're getting a little spicy down there with the Apollo.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
nice. How do they use their powers? That was my other question. Is
Mhm.
like, do they use their powers in the book, or do they choose like? Because in the bar scene, they were just like throwing punches. They weren't like, "Hey, guess what? I'm a god," and like
Lightning
annihilating
bolt.
somebody. Yeah,
They
lightning
don't,
bolting somebody.
yeah, they don't do it in front of like normal humans because they don't want to give away who they are because that can
Yeah.
cause an issue. So there are even parts in the other books where they do something called ghosting, which means they hop from one location to the other,
Oh.
and they've gotten nearly busted because they ghosted in the middle of public, and all of a sudden they're there when they're not supposed to be. And
Oh.
yeah, these guys, if they're doing it to each other, it's one thing, but in that particular case, they ghosted in front of Hades and Zeus, and that did not go well.
Oh, I bet.
On a city street, yeah.
So, are you gonna write a Zeus and a Hades, or are they just like the parent kind of
Hades,
figures?
Hades has one. It's called oh, now I forgot what it's called, but it's a retelling of Hades and Persephone. But
Okay.
in this case, Zeus reneges on his blessing on their marriage, so he takes Persephone back and sends Hades to Tartarus. So the family has to get Hades out of Tartarus and rescue Persephone from her dad,
Okay. Okay.
including her mom, who has no idea why Zeus would do that.
So what I'm feeling a general theme here in tonight's episodes that like everybody
Yeah.
loves a little bit of history.
Yeah.
Because Tricia, you're like totally into the Greek mythology thing, and Carla's all the archaeology stuff. So it's like you created the problems that Carla's looking for
It's
Pretty
very
much,
true.
yeah.
in the soil.
And it's interesting too, because Cyprus, which is where Field Rules takes place, is the birthplace of Aphrodite, supposedly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so they call it the Island of Love or the Island of Aphrodite, and there's Aphrodite souvenirs everywhere.
Yep.
Oh, I love it.
So many cheesy Aphrodite souvenirs, like all over the island. It's pretty wild.
Okay, I'm actually writing that down as Cyprus is a place to visit.
It is.
That's-
It's beautiful. It's a
Yeah.
lot like Greece. It's in terms of like climate, and it's got ruins, and it's got beaches, and it's the Island of Love. It's Aphrodite's island.
I love that.
Yeah.
If I can convince my husband to go, I don't know. He's like an on land guy.
If you go in the off season, it's really not expensive. It's
Yeah.
very expensive in the summer, but I went to do research in March of, I guess, 2022, and it wasn't bad at all because it's a little cooler. You're not going to be doing the beach thing, but I was more interested in the ruins anyway, but it's not too bad.
The problem with my husband is he says he was a sailor. He can swim. If a boat wrecks, he can swim, but he can't fly.
Oh,
So,
okay. That's
so he won't fly anywhere.
okay. That might be a deal breaker then for this island.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah.
far.
I don't know. Can we take a boat over there? I don't know. Possibly.
You'd have to. No, I think it would take too long because even yeah.
It'd be a series
Get
of
him on the
boats.
plane and knock him out, Dawn.
Well, I guess you could
Yeah.
drive to the East Coast and take one of those like Disney Mediterranean cruises. If
Ooh,
you
yeah.
know, I know they go
Yeah.
to like Italy and Spain
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Greece.
Or I mean, maybe I'll just buy an apartment on a world cruise, one of those world cruises where you can like buy the
Yeah.
apartments and then just live on it.
I'd love that.
That's probably what I'm going to have to do in order to get him over there. So I want to know who inspired you to write? Like, who is the author that inspires you to do what you do?
Hmm.
And let's start with Tricia this time.
I had been writing a long time, like since I was little. But the one that really kind of kicked it was Karen Marie Moning, who wrote the Highlander series and the Fever series. And I hadn't even noticed her until one day I was literally at work and a Barnes and Noble ad popped up in the email. And not even my email, my boss's email. And I saw this book cover and I thought, that looks really interesting. So I went and looked at it. and I bought it. And I bought the rest of the series, and I love her. And that when I read that, I understood I could write the way that my voice was, because it was very similar to the way my voice is. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. And I've been going ever since.
Wow.
Now, I have a follow-up question to that is, have you ever tried to figure out what your boss's genre is? Because clearly they're targeting him with Barnes and Noble.
Business books. That's all. It was IT books, like
Oh.
software and stuff. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's boring. So
Boring.
Yep.
okay.
Yeah.
Not as fun as I would have thought, but why would
Nope.
I mean, I honestly feel like if they're suggesting that author to him,
Yeah.
maybe he has some secret that
Mhm.
maybe he actually likes romance and he doesn't
Could
tell
be.
anybody.
He's been talking
Yeah.
about it behind the scenes and
Yeah.
his phone it up.
Probably. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you liked IT in the new century, you might like
Right.
Yeah.
Blood fever. Yeah.
Tricia Andersen.
Shadow fever. Yeah.
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 All right. What about you, Carla?
So I've been writing, since I was about 8, but I think it was when I was like in 8th grade, someone gave me a Victoria Holt book. They're like, you're really going to like this. And
Mhm.
she wrote that gothic sort of romance vibe on the moors with the broody guy. And usually there's like a sort of sweet governess. And I just love those. I read all of them. And then she also wrote a series that's Philippa Carr set in like Tudor England. And I love them. And I was like, I just love like this romance, but I loved having like in a richly set world. Like I love that the world was really filled out. And so I think I just read so much of that. And then I sort of graduated to the big old paperbacks that they call bodice rippers. And that's kind of, I always just wanted to write romance because I was like, I love this genre.
Yeah.
Even though some of those old books are not great. Especially the big thick paperbacks that I used to read, Kathleen Woodwess and Rosemary Rogers, and now they're like, you're like, ooh, yeah, not great, but at the time I just devoured them.
I feel like you're actually talking about the bookshelf behind me. So yeah.
No judgment. I just sometimes I'm like, ooh, I can't believe how much I love those books.
Yeah. So I actually got interviewed by like a newspaper guy this last week for my new job. And he's like, how do you feel? Are you okay with me saying you're a romance author? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the number one genre, right? And I'm like, totally tell everybody. So yeah, I'm not ashamed.
Oh no.
I love writing romance. So
yeah.
Okay, Brittany. Sorry, go ahead.
I would say the boss I talked about was my last boss. This current boss that I have, because I switched jobs 3 years ago, when he introduced me, he's like, I can say that you write books, right? And I'm like, knock yourself out, dude.
Please. Here's my business card. Here's my book bookmark.
I work in finance, and they've been really nice about not, overwhelming me. But then I told my coworker, her and I are payroll. And I looked at her and I said, she's like, can I get one? I'm like, yeah, you can get one. Now she's like, I love your books. It's good.
I love it. Brittany, do you have any more questions? Because I have one more that's that we'd like to do at the end. Do you have any more
I want to know what your favorite tropes are to write. I love hearing about that from other writers.
Yeah.
Your favorite romance trope. Let's
fake dating. Love fake dating. Anything, only one bed, only one tent, only one hotel room, anything like that. Love it. Those are my 2 favorites. I don't, enemies to lovers can be tough, but I love rivals to lovers. So like one of my books is the academic, so it's like academic rivals to lovers. I like that. I don't love like straight up enemies where they just want to hate each other, but more when they're like bantering and rivalry and they're like, ooh, I'm gonna best you, but there's like that spark. So those are some of my faves.
Yeah, I actually watched, and this isn't books, but I watched The Hating Game the other day. And I was like, oh my gosh, she did it. She did an enemies to lover so good. I'm like, why didn't I think of this? Like, I was like a little sad, but But that I didn't
It's
think of
already
it. But
done.
yeah. What about you, Tricia?
I would have to say it was 7 werewolf books. It's enemies to lovers because I had to write 7 different relationships where
Wow.
they did not know each other. And the only reason they ended up together at all was because they had one hot night and they both ended up with tattoos that matched the next morning.
Fated
And
mates. Yeah.
Yeah.
fated mates, and they none of them I think actually liked each other when it started, but when it was over they were deeply in love. So I had one that tried to kill him. It was great. Her
So
whole thing was to try to kill him.
okay, I gotta be like, I said one more question towards the end, but there's one more before that because you just made me think of that. Like alpha, beta, or what was it Dylan called? Like omega, or like what? Not omega, but alpha or beta for you. Like, what do you like in your
Beta.
hero?
Alpha.
Totally beta, cinnamon roll, golden retriever. That's my vibe. Most of my guys are like that. I don't run a lot of alphas.
Most of mine are hard-headed, macho, with MMA fighter.
Well, that makes sense given what you're doing. And
Yeah.
mine are academics and chefs, and like there's just different people. They're just not. Yeah, they're not. They're more beta for sure.
Yeah.
But I married a
No.
beta, so I totally get that.
So did I.
I don't know, Carla. Carla, you're sitting here talking about this guy who was like his job was to just like shovel dirt and like be the manly guy. I don't know.
He's
Are you
kind of an
sure you
alpha.
wrote a
Rick
beta?
is, but the other
It
two
sounds like he.
are more nerdy. So my
Yeah.
other 2 archaeology heroes
Yeah.
are more nerdy than Rick is more of a little bit of a tougher guy. Yeah, he's got more of a past. So yeah, Rick was more of an alpha, and the first guy in my Blackwood Sellers books was more of an alpha, but the rest of them are all kind of cinnamon rolly.
Yeah. Ooey gooey center. Okay, so this is the last question that we like to ask before we go because we have gone over time. Like always, Tricia will tell you, and so will Brittany. We always go over. This is a new question. I don't even know if Brittany knows, so she's gonna have to answer it too if she has not answered it already. If your life or love life was a trope, what would it be? Brittany, have you answered that?
I don't
before?
know.
Mine is super easy, so I can go first. Mine is
Okay.
totally friends to lovers.
Yeah.
Not only
Oh.
is it friends to lovers, but it's oh my gosh, he's been there the whole time and I didn't realize it. Because we were in
Yes.
grad school together, and we were friends, part of a friend group, and we went to this dance and we're slow dancing. I was like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Like this, he's right here. So it was classic friends to lovers.
Love it. I love a good friends to lover. What about you, Tricia?
I was going to say friends to lovers, but we knew each other for 6 months. I don't know. More like strangers to lovers because we were coworkers. I'm sorry, coworkers
Yeah,
to
workmates.
Ah, there
We
you
were
go.
coworkers.
Office romance.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it went fast because when we first met, we sparked right away. And then he beat my stats and I refused to talk to him for 6 months.
Oh, funny. Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So definite workplace romance for sure. That's a good trope. Oh, I love it. Brittany, have you decided on yours?
Well, it would probably Corey and I met on a blind date, and we've been together for 18 years now.
Wow.
We have 4 kids, and right now it's Hot Mess Express trying to survive with 4 children and a farm. But that just made me realize I need to do the blind date trope. I haven't done that one yet.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Blind date. Yeah, I love it. Awesome. Well, like I said, we are over time. So thank you ladies so much for joining us here at Romance Happy Hour. We will be back in, oh gosh, I'm not going to say 2 weeks because I don't know what my weekends look like in May. But the second week of May, we will be back, and Dylan's going to be here this time. Thank you, Brittany, so much for hosting with me tonight. And thank you, Tricia and Carla, for joining me. Is there any, where would you like our viewers to find you at? Where are you the most on social media?
Probably Facebook.
I would
I
say.
try to
Go ahead.
I try to branch out to the other ones, but it always comes back to Facebook.
Probably for me, Instagram more than Facebook. I'm on Facebook too, but Instagram probably a little more.
Okay.
And also Threads.
Awesome.
I'm on Threads quite a bit.
Oh, I haven't branched out into Threads yet. I'm a little bit scared. I don't know
Yeah,
yet.
it scared me the first time. I
It's a
saw
little
it.
scary.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us, and we will see you viewers not next week, the second week of May. Bye.